Councilor Lamont,
Here.
Wendland,
Here.
Mans,
Here.
Koha,
Here.
O'Neill,
Here.
Wynn.
Here.
And I will say joining us in the meeting is City Manager Martha Bennett, City Attorney David Powell, City Recorder Anne Marie Simpson, Assistant City Manager Megan Phelan, Parks and Recreation Director Ivan Anderholm, Police Chief Dale Jorgensen, Citizen Information Specialist Katie Kirkland. Did I get everyone?
Anne Marie, John is no longer on the grid for some reason.
Okay, thanks. I'll reach out to him.
Okay. City Manager Bennett, go ahead.
All right, everybody, I'm going to put two documents up one at a time for this part of the report. So first I want to give you the latest of what's happening. I don't think I did that right. Hold on just a second.
He's back on now, Anne Marie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am going to put up this. First, I want to give you a report on what's happening in Oregon around COVID. Can you all see this?
Yes.
All right, so
Yes.
We learned today that in the last 24 hours, there were 50 new COVID diagnosis cases reported today, and yesterday it was 59. So the total in Oregon is 316. There's about another 50 or so in Clark County, just across the river. And then if you look down below in the metropolitan area, Clackamas has a 21, Multnomah 45, and Washington 104. So the bulk of the cases in Oregon, over half, are in the metropolitan area. The other piece of information I want to share with you is we get a daily report from Clackamas County about what's happening. And today the focus of the report was really about the bill that passed the Senate. And I've just put that up for you. It's a little tough to read, but I can email it to you later. Basically, the bill that was passed by the Senate, it's on its way to the House. They may vote by as soon as tomorrow, is directed primarily at providing financial assistance to people who've lost their jobs. There's also quite a bit of assistance for businesses that have been affected by essentially the loss of business from the stay-home orders. So there's a lot of stuff here about folks who have been laid off or folks who are working less. And some of it is very good news for folks who have been severely affected. I think Megan can tell you the state of Oregon reported today. We have over 22,000 folks in Oregon who are unemployed compared to about 3,000 people a month ago. Did I get that about right, Megan?
Yes, that's correct.
So that's probably the biggest thing I want to share with you about the status of what's going on statewide. The next thing on the agenda, though, is that we made several changes on Monday in response to the governor's order. The one is that you all know is that we've closed all of our public facilities to walk-in traffic. So people can no longer just walk into City Hall, the maintenance center, any of the fire stations. And I have to say that's very, very, very important. I also appointed Megan Phelan to be incident commander and bring up sort of in a virtual form our emergency operations center. So I want to turn it over to Megan to talk about what we're doing at EOC so you have a flavor of that.
All right, well, good afternoon, Council. So of course, under Martha's leadership, we opened our Emergency Operations Center last Saturday in anticipation of the executive order that came down from the governor. The Emergency Operations Center team has been meeting daily since then, and our three primary objectives are to protect the health and safety of the public, to protect employee safety, and to act reasonably, responsibly, and predictably. Our initial focus was maintaining operations and adjusting as necessary when we received the executive order on Monday. And as Martha mentioned, we closed city facilities to walk-in customers. We closed many of our parks facilities. We moved city services online and on telephone. We shifted from in-person meetings to telephone or video conferencing, and we encouraged employees to work remotely when they can. And we also established some social distancing practices. In addition, the Emergency Operations Center focused on getting up a citizen support center. That's a telephone number and an email where people can call and ask questions that they have regarding any COVID-related items. And we developed a public outreach and communications plan, which you'll hear more about from Katie Kirkland a little bit. Just so you know, we're also working on a business assistance plan, which you'll hear about more at your meeting on Monday. And we're also thinking now about how we can best utilize volunteers and our CERT members. CERT is a program through our fire department I think many of you are familiar with. It's been a busy week for sure, and we've been incredibly appreciative of all our city staff that has pulled together to accomplish so much in that time frame. There's certainly more work to do, and I feel we got a really good plan moving forward. That's all for my report. But if there are any questions I can answer about the EOC, I'm happy to take those at this time.
Megan, I have a question. How are the hunger fighters doing? Have they got enough food?
I will put that on our agenda to check in with them. We have not heard from them. I know they were at the council meeting prior to the last one, so we'll check in on them.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? All right, go ahead.
Okay, so the next thing that we wanted to update you on is the status of the parks closures, which is why I've asked Ivan to be here. I think you know we made some pretty significant changes in parks facilities. We closed all the parking lots. We closed all the playgrounds. We closed all the ball fields. We've closed the community gardens, which has so far been the #1 complaint that we've had. And so let me turn it over to Ivan quickly to give you a status report on what's going on.
Good afternoon. So as Martha stated, we have closed down our parking lots, our restrooms, our drinking fountains, our athletic fields, our sports courts, and also our community gardens. The approach that we took was to close down those areas that are most likely where people congregate in our parks without going the length of entirely trying to shut down our parks. As Manager Bennett said, the #1 comment that we've been getting is at the community gardens, and we are concerned about those gardeners that use that as food security for their families. So we are working behind the scenes with our community supported agriculture farmer at the farm to provide a solution for those people that are relying on that produce both now and later throughout the year. So we will be making some communication tomorrow with our community farmers in that regard. And then the only other point that we've had a little bit of concern is concern of those folks that are still driving to our parks, and in particular to George Rogers Park and parking in the Old Town neighborhood. So we have our park ranger as well as CSO officers that are regularly taking a look at that area and making sure that people are complying with all of the parking regulations. We have also posted that park as well as Westlake with signs encouraging people not to drive to the park, but to walk to a park near their home.
Ivan?
I'm willing to take questions at this time.
Yeah, Ivan, can you give a little short rationale of why you're closing the community gardens? Because I know that's been the subject of a lot of emails.
Yeah, I think the #1 thing on that, Mayor Studebaker, is that when we took a look at the governor's order, we took a look at our park system and we took a look at those areas that naturally lend themselves to people congregating in large groups. And definitely our community gardens is one of those places. I also mentioned that we forgot to mention that we shut down our municipal golf course as well. So the rationale behind that was we're taking a look at those places where people naturally congregate. The majority of our farmers drive to the farm. using the same rationale that we use for closing down our parking lots and discouraging people from taking unnecessary trips. The other data that we're reading from the National Park Service, state parks, and others is that it's not just the congregation of people on athletic fields and courts, but the other place that people congregate when they come to parks is in parking lots. People meet up in parking lots and do that. So that is our rationale. And I know that we've been getting a lot of comments about that, and I don't want to lessen the impact of that, and we're definitely looking at that. And especially with the food security issue, we're looking at some solutions for that.
Thank you.
We also know, Your Honor, that we were sending some mixed messages to folks about what was okay and what was not okay, and we are now trying to be as consistently as possible. The real issue is if you can get to it by walking out your front door, please do it. But if you have to drive and it's not a necessary trip, please don't.
Councilor Mans, you had a question.
I do, for Director Anderholm. I read something recently, and I believe it came from the Oregon Health Authority or someone there, about outdoor clothes. And if you're out hiking or in the forest or working in the garden, that you should not be bringing those clothes into your house. Have you heard anything about that?
I haven't read anything
Okay.
particular to that, no. But the other occurrence that regularly happens, and there are some workarounds with our community gardens. But the other thing that commonly happens in our community gardens is shared tools, which creates a whole nother issue where people are sharing tools either intentionally or unintentionally. And with the fact that we have over 200 community gardens and the opportunity for that many people to come work their gardens, we just felt that there's a risk there, and that we would err on the conservative side, and then look at how we can address the food security issue if that arises.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay.
I think the only other thing I'd say on this topic is our priority remains making sure our first responders stay healthy and making sure the folks who run the wastewater or the water treatment plant and also our public works facilities stay healthy. And so you'll see adjusted operations to make sure we have folks who are capable of reporting to duty in those departments.
Councilor Lamont, you had a question.
Yes, while we have the chief there, and following up what Martha just said, how are the officers doing? I know they're doing a lot more than they do typically, but are they okay? And do you have any problems with any interaction with the public about these closures?
How about if we shift to that topic next, Dale, and have you cover sort of what our approach is to enforcement of the governor's order generally? Is that all right?
Absolutely. Thank you, and good afternoon, Council and Mr. Mayor. City Manager Bennett asked me to just talk a little bit about the governor's order. As you're aware, back on Monday, the Executive Order 2012 was issued. And as a law enforcement community, we decided that the best thing to do throughout the state was to have one consistent message. And the message was actually kind of produced by Oregon State Police in conjunction with the governor's office. And we wholeheartedly support this message. I think it kind of goes to the core values that we as a police department have anyway, which is to be the most reasonable we can be. So we approach these as, number one, we want to educate our community on what the executive order actually means. So let's use the example of a playground in the park. So somebody's on the playground, which is obviously closed. We would go and educate those people on why the governor issued that order and why it's important to follow that order. The next alternative that we have is to actually warn them and tell them that, it's closed, they need to leave. And then at the very last option is to cite them for a violation of the governor's order. And I have to tell you that by far, I think our community is adhering to most of those. We have a few calls that we've been going on, mostly park related. But once we get there, it's quickly resolved with a little bit of education. So we haven't had to resort to any of the other ones. And to answer Councilor Lamott's question, our officers are well and safe, and we've got great protocols in place to make sure that we stay healthy.
Councilor Lamont.
The follow-up question is, I think some citizens are confused about the next step with the police, not just at parks, but if they're driving to a friend's house or they're driving to the grocery store. Can you just comment on what they cannot do? I think some people think they can't go out of their house, period. But that's not the case. But if you just clarify a little bit of that, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely not. They can leave their house for necessary trips to the grocery store, to pharmacies, to even though we don't encourage it, to go outside and recreate at the parks if they obviously can't park in the parking lot. But we don't pull anybody over for simply leaving their house. That's actually unconstitutional and it goes against the governor's order. So martial law hasn't been declared or anything like that. People are welcome to go and leave their house and do whatever they need to do.
Thank you. That's good news.
Councilor Wendland.
So just to clarify that, anyone who is working in a business that's still open, that's not on the list of closed businesses, they should have no issue with police pulling them over. There's a number of national companies that are giving letters to their employees to say that they have been authorized by the Homeland Security to be able to work and that they're essential services. Is that, nothing like that is going on in Oregon, is that correct?
That's correct. There's been a couple of businesses here in Lake Oswego that have reached out and actually have shared with us the letters they're using. That's fine. We're not going to pull anybody over for doing that. We don't decide who's essential and who's not for that business. As long as those businesses can comply with the governor's order of social distancing and the other aspects of it, they're fine to continue to work, and we have no say in any of that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks, Steve.
You bet.
Okay, so now I'd like to turn to Katie and have her do a quick overview of the communications plan and the request for counselors.
Sure. Hi, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you for having me here today. I'm here to let you know about the role I'm playing. I'm helping assist our crisis communications response in this emergency. We all know right now there's a lot of information and misinformation available. It's changing by the minute. So we're working hard to develop and provide clear, accurate, reliable, timely, and easily understood information. Aligning with the activation of the EOC on Saturday, March 21st, we created a cross-department communications team, and we've developed a coronavirus strategic communications plan, which Martha shared with you a few days ago, I believe. The plan is intended to be a working document that we can update. We've already made some changes to it already since it went out the other day, and we will update and adjust that as needed throughout the crisis. I'll talk a little bit about what that plan involves. The purpose is to outline our strategy and approach to communications related to the virus and the global outbreak. As far as our main communications objective, that is to provide clear, accurate, reliable, easily understood and timely information. As for our goals, we are sharing educational content from trusted sources, federal, state, and academia, providing calls to action, maintaining the public's trust, alerting the public of the executive orders by state and federal government as needed. We're encouraging folks to respect the social distancing, the stay home, stay lives order from the governor, provide open and honest, compassionate, and a human voice during this crisis that we're all in, establish a voice of assurance and empathy for our community We're utilizing that by creating the hashtag LO Together for our social media branding. Be a local source for our relevant Lake Oswego community and share stories to inspire positivity in this uncertain time in order to build our community up. That plan also includes some key stakeholder groups that we've identified, including specific demographic groups and targeted stakeholders. It also outlines our external and internal communications channels that we'll be utilizing and the platforms that we'll be using as well. And as for actions to date, since we've developed that plan, we've started to implement it. Since Saturday, since the activation of the EOC, we've created the coronavirus cross-department communications team. So that's made up of, there's a core team of us that includes 5 of us as myself, Diana Smith-Bauer, Bonnie Hirschberger, Jamie Inglis, Madison Thiesing, and we're led by Anthony Hooper. We have established a EOC at recurring meetings in line with our EOC meetings. So we've been meeting every day as a communications team. We also meet with a broader group, which includes representatives from fire, police, a library, and parks. So we're really covering all of our communications and strategizing together. As for other actions, we've increased, really boosted up our social media posting and messaging. The city is active. We have our citywide account. We have a Facebook account. We have Nextdoor, Instagram, and Twitter. So we're really utilizing each of those platforms to share content and get messaging out. We have established a content calendar. So we're tracking when we're posting and kind of scheduling, planning ahead different ideas that we have. We also have a tracking list where we're tracking ideas that come in from the community or ideas that we've come up with, that we have a running list for future posts. So that's great for us to refer to and think, okay, when we're going to schedule this message, we should go out on this day, and we're adjusting according to what's happening on the day. We've also established, I mentioned the LO hashtag. I do encourage all of you to follow the city's accounts. I know some of you are active on social media. So I encourage you to follow us on social media and reshare the posts that we share. Megan touched a little bit on the Citizen Information Center. We expanded that. So now we have additional staffing to assist Diana Smith-Bauer from the library. So we've got that set up Monday to Saturday, 9 till 6. And then we also have the email that is used from the Citizen Information Center as well. We've updated the city's coronavirus website with recent information. We've issued several press releases related to what we've been doing to date, our actions, facility closures, parks, and then obviously the state of emergency ratified earlier this week. In addition, we have placed some advertising in the LO Review. Today, I think there are 3 ads. There was one for the parks closures and small business loans information, and then also the critical need for blood. We've also developed key talking points and FAQs. We have a running list that we're updating for the CIC Center for their staff, and that's based on a lot of the questions that they're receiving as well, or questions that we're receiving over the evening. We update as accordingly. And same with a running list, a shorter list for council as well. We also have developed some specific outreach materials that we're using and graphics for the website, social media, and for print. So we kind of have a consistent look and feel. As for actions moving forward, we continue updating and implementing our communication strategy. And we've been meeting, as I mentioned before, every afternoon to run through what our next 24 hours are going to be and what our last operational period was as far as meeting our objectives. We're updating and refreshing the FAQs and talking points frequently. A big thing that we're going to work on is refreshing the format and the layout of the coronavirus webpage on the city's homepage. We are planning on creating a menu and a sidebar. So it's going to be, instead of it just being one page with a lot of content and a lot of text, we're going to change it to being more like a group or department page where it has the sidebar and the menu on the side, so people can have sub pages, and we can clean the information and make it clearer for people to display it easier. Having our FAQs on there, community resources, business resources, and trusted links. And we're hoping to get that completed, and we'll be updating that in every day accordingly, but hoping to have that switch over in the next week. We're also developing public outreach content. We're utilizing our content calendar and our ideas list, social media posting, developing programs for business support, outreach to at-risk and vulnerable populations. We're also setting up our weekly recap newsletter. We did actually activate that last week for Nextdoor, but we're going to ramp that up a little bit. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And then we're also talking about doing some weekly advertising in the LO review specific to different messaging that we want to focus on at the time. So specific to council, this is where we'd love to get your involvement and input. I mentioned the recap e-newsletter. So we're going to be posting that on Nextdoor. We're thinking we're going to utilize a listserv from Lowdown. And in that little recap, we would also include a council corner message. And we would then post that on the website as well. And that council corner message would be in correspondence with the video that we produce with that particular councillor for the week. I think, Anne-Marie, can you pull up the video program that I sent? You there?
Emery, you're muted right now.
Thank you. All right, let's see if I can get this up for you.
Katie, what social media outlets are you using?
We're using Facebook, we're using Nextdoor, Twitter, and Instagram.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anne-Marie, for pulling that up. Okay, so this is a draft plan that we just developed that would be related to council videos. So the purpose is to provide community video messages during the crisis from each of our councillors and our mayor. So this is obviously a stressful time for everyone. We want to be able to provide stability and an opportunity for the community to hear from you to provide messages of support, and then also calls to action as needed. So our plan is to launch this next week and produce a video every week with a, starting obviously with the mayor next week, highlighting different community updates and reminders. And then we're thinking the video would be no more than a minute long. We'll try to keep it short and succinct. And we would provide the coordination, a script or talking points. It doesn't have to be a specific script, but filming instructions and publishing. So we've created this little package. If you scroll down a little bit, Anne-Marie can see, this is the suggested order that we have and the topic for our councillors so far. The mayor, obviously, next week, which is kind of a generic, we are here for our community, we are in this together, and we're still here for our citizens. Councillor Kohlhoff, the importance of stay home, save lives. Councillor Lamotte would be available city resources for families with children. Councillor Nguyen, supporting local businesses. Councillor Manns, helping the community with blood donations and food bank. Councillor Wenland, potential partnership with the school district. And then Councillor O'Neill would be city continuing essential services. Now, these are subject to change. We can definitely adjust those, but these are just sort of some of the ideas that we had in this first little brainstorm. If you scroll down a little bit more, Anne Marie, we can see, thank you, the video structure. We would try to have them similar in each of the videos. So we would have our councillors introduce themselves, then go through the main talking points, and we would provide those talking points with you with some of the must-haves, and then have a closing statement. So they're all similar, formatted in a similar way. The tone would be uplifting and supportive, and our idea is to schedule these to film them by the Monday of the week and then publish them on the Thursday, so that we can share them. And we would hope to share them on social media and then post them on our website. And then also, I know we're thinking about as well possibly playing some of them on Tualatin Valley Community TV as well. Anne-Marie, can you just scroll through? So we've got, this is a draft. This would be a package showing video instructions. We thought it would probably best to have you share these, create these at home on your phone to film yourself at home. And so we thought it would be, we have some video instructions on that package, and then we would also have the talking points. Anne-Marie, can you scroll down to the bottom? To the next page. Yeah, so this would just be sort of the instructions, and then the talking points are on the next page as an example of kind of the script that we would use. And then that, I think I mentioned, yeah, sharing them on social media, and they would include the key messages and the reminders, the calls to action. So with that, any questions?
Mayor?
Councilor Mans.
Yes, I have a couple of quick questions. One of which is offline. Can I talk to you about an Instagram problem I'm having posting your posts onto my feed? Can we work on that a little bit offline? I've got Facebook.
Sure.
Everything else. That one is boggling me though, and I followed the
Sure.
directions. The other one is I'm happy to do whichever one you want. I'm really kind of bummed. I wanted to do the water treatment plant. No, I'm kidding, but I might have to negotiate with Councilor O'Neill on that one. Library books, and I asked this because I know there are people who've asked me, is it safe to return library books? And I think that might fit into talking about our librarians and community, what they're doing for our community and the call-in. I didn't see a specific counselor blurb in that video, but those are just my thoughts around that.
Sure, they're great thoughts. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mayor?
Oh, Councilor Koloff, yes, please.
So I had a question, and this is pretty exciting, and I support it absolutely. So, but I wasn't quite following how this works. Let's assume that somebody from the citizenry had some great pictures. Like it came to mind when Manager Bennett sent this beautiful picture of LO, and it needed to be shared, and I shared it with my family, and now it seems like an appropriate time if people could, for example, share the pictures as they're walking their dogs or wherever they're going. Now, if they were to send that to you, then you would post it where? On the city website or on Facebook? That's what when you say we're going to post it, we're going to put it on the website, I'm not really following where that is.
So we're usually fairly strategic with, usually when I say post, I'm meaning that we would post that on social media. So yeah, a lot of times I know Parks is really great at sharing on Instagram and our Instagram stories. There's a feed where they reshare images that other people have posted to build up the community. So we've already done that a couple times where others in our community that are following us on Instagram have posted things and we reshare it on our stories. And that is particularly good to do with that hashtag. The hashtag is useful on Twitter and on Instagram, so we can kind of track that and reshare content accordingly.
Thank you.
Councilman Omar?
Two questions for Katie. One is, you mentioned the blood drive, and Counselor Mans would give us an update, but that would be like in 3 or 4 weeks. If typically the blood drives in town are at City Hall, where would they be? That's the first question, but I'll get to the next one in a minute. But what are we doing with the blood drive?
The blood drive is still going ahead at the council chambers. Megan might be able to add a little bit more. I believe we're going to seal the main. We'll still have the city hall closed, but we'll have the entrance and exit through the side door. And the Red Cross will be adhering to all of the guidelines and taking extra precautions. We did share a post yesterday re-emphasizing that, you know, that we need to give blood. There's a critical shortage of it. So I believe that our blood drive might be completely scheduled, booked up with appointments, which is fantastic. But we're also trying to emphasize that, hey, they still need blood. You can go and give blood at other blood drives, go to the Red Cross website, and they will have the latest information. But they're at a critical shortage, so we're still trying to get that message out that it's still safe to do so.
The second question is, I've had a couple people ask me about Boones Ferry Road construction on or off. Are the contractors considered essential? And if not, then I think that answers the question. But if they are they still working on Boones Ferry? I saw them one day and didn't see them another.
So all construction activities are allowed by the governor's order. Residential construction, commercial construction, and public works projects are all still going ahead.
Councilman Mans, you had a question?
Yeah, one more quick question, just looping back to social media. If people add the hashtag City of Lake Oswego, LO together, I find the staff is really good about picking pictures out and posting them. So getting that message out to folks is vitally important, those who are using social media, Facebook as well.
Councilor O'Neill?
While we were on, I heard back from Malcolm at Hunger Fighters. 16 families came to Hunger Fighters last night. They've had 40 for the week. They've had great support by the school district and people in the community getting them food. He did mention, as he said, dollars are always helpful, but communications from our city to our citizens about Hunger Fighters is, he believes, just as valuable. So he's always interested in more money, but it feels like he has enough right now. But maybe we just every Thursday check back and see how they're doing. And if they're getting more and more people, then I think that kind of answers that question.
Good point, thanks. Councilor Kohlhoff?
So just one thing, I've recently discovered that there is a need for intergenerational information, so that I was telling the mayor before we started, I knew somebody very well who needed cash immediately, and they needed to buy food, and I didn't know how to get money to them. And all of a sudden it was brought back to me how the young people have means through these various apps to get that money, and the person within a few minutes was able to go get food. And I'm just suggesting that There are things that experience teaches you, and there are things that the young know, and they need to help us as well. And I invite that. And Katie, I will send you a list of some of my ideas to recruit them, because technology is their second skin or first skin. Who knows? But that I do want to share that.
Definitely appreciate that, and we welcome ideas and thoughts. As I mentioned, we strategize every day, and we shift, ideas around depending on what we need to get out. Appreciate Councillor O'Neill your thought about hunger fighters. We had that in our list, but we can make that a priority if we need to, just like we did with the blood Red Cross post yesterday. So we can definitely make that on our message. Councillor Lamotte, you had a question. Just wanted to add, about Boonesferry Road. There's an article actually in the review today. I'm not sure if it's in the print version, but on the online, Clara Howe reported on construction on our city projects. So I provided her some messaging about that as well, about the importance of keeping our city projects working and under construction for the economy too. So that's in the review today.
Councillor Wen, you have a question?
General question about medical supplies, and I guess it'd be more directed towards the fire department and such, but do we have a sense of, do we have enough supplies? Is that going to be an issue with PPE and masks and gloves and things like that?
Dale, do you want to take that? I know you and Chief Johnson have talked. Or Megan?
Yeah, I can. So for the fire department and the police department, we're pooling our resources, and the fire department, we learned today, is working with Clackamas County to kind of balance the inventory. We were critically low on a couple of things in the police department. We have found a source locally, and so we're sitting fairly good right now for both the fire and the police.
Do we also know, for example, with a lot of restaurants being closed now, we have a lot of, even though it's not medical grade, but gloves that are able to be used, vinyl gloves, latex-free gloves that can be used, for first responders and things. I know that I, for example, I've been sitting on a lot of inventory in terms of gloves that we're not going to be using in the next couple of months here. So I was driving by OHSU. I noticed that they had a medical supply drop-off. But are there other places here in locally that we could use them, or if you maybe could direct some people that may be sitting at home wondering how they can help with this? I think that would help. If we, a lot of different ways people can help volunteer and donate things in different ways. But I thought was one of the ways that as a restaurateur, but also I'm thinking dentists and other professions where they are not necessarily working now, but they may have access to supplies that are in their cupboard or other in their closets that they can use for the first responders.
Again, another great question, Councillor. Yes, we learned in the EOC meeting today that there are a few doctors that are actually looking for gloves and other things because they're running out. One of the supplies chains that we have are only allowing us to buy 10 boxes of gloves a month. Fortunately, we had a pretty good stock, so I think we're going to probably be okay. But I know that the fire department has set up some distribution points, so if people want to donate something, they can contact the fire department and they'll arrange for those things to be dropped off. That's a great idea with the restaurateurs. To tell you the truth, didn't think about that, but that would be a great source for gloves if we get to that point where we're starting to run low too.
Our veterinarian just did the same thing. She's donating extra to the cause. So we have 4 or 5 vets in the city, plus the restaurateurs. Maybe we can help out in our own little way. So that's great. Great question, Daniel.
Other questions? Thanks, Katie.
Thank you, Katie.
Okay, I really want to thank Katie. We kind of called her into action on Friday night.
Yeah.
And she and this team of 5 have really knocked it out of the park. same thing with Melissa Kelly and the Citizen Information Center. The librarians have just pulled out all the stops, making sure we're answering questions, and we're getting some soup to nuts in terms of the questions. So I really appreciate them coming to the plate, I guess. Before I just turn it over to all y'all to make sure we get a list of any questions you might have, I did want to check in with you about the last item I emailed you about yesterday, which is we're scheduled to open the recruitment for city boards and commissions next week on April 1st. And I guess my recommendation to you would be that we delay that, but I want to make sure I check in with all of you about that, because I can't see that you're going to be in a position to do interviews on the normal schedule. And it also just seems like mixed messages right now. It seems like we ought to stay pretty focused. But let me shut up and get your thoughts.
Is there anybody that does not think that's a good idea? Councilor Wendland, you had a question?
The only thing is that a lot of people are home right now and they may be considering spending their time filling out an application very well, and we may get a lot of interest. Sometimes civil events like this, crisis, brings the better part of people out. And I'm not saying not to have, I delay it, but I wouldn't say delay it too long, because I think there's people who are watching media, they're doing things, and they're very focused. If all of a sudden we are let go and we are out of quarantine, we will lose everyone's attention very quickly, and it will not be a thing. So I would say play with it over the next few weeks.
Okay, let me actually give that sort of to Katie and say, Katie, we're going to have a window where we're going to be having a lot of volunteerism be a part of what we're messaging, and so maybe that's the moment in time for us to open the boards and commissions recruitment. You want to give back, you can give back right now, or you could give back over the longer term. So that's a great point, but I don't think next week will probably be the week.
Agree. Yeah, we can definitely add that in.
I would just add, I agree with Councilor Wendland, and maybe we can do it, depending on the timing again, at least get the applications in and then sort through them. And then maybe we could all, each one of us, take a couple for over the phone interviews if need be down the road. But I think it's a good point, John, that we keep the flow going as far as interest on our boards and commissions, but not to overload staff right now or us with interviews.
Is that what you needed to know?
Yeah, if you're all in agreement that we'll release it, but maybe just not right now.
Okay.
Oh, okay, that's great. So now is sort of your time. I think I also sent via email to you that we will give you an update next Monday on the work that we've done so far on the business assistance planning. We'll also give you an update about the types of questions we're getting through our Citizen Information Center, and then an update on the communications plan. Is there anything else that we haven't covered that you want to know, questions that you're getting, et cetera?
Councilor Wendland.
I would just like to say that I've been getting emails from the Pamplin Media Group on restaurants that are open for takeout. And I don't know whether we can figure that into some of our links, but supporting all of our local businesses that are still open and trying to make the best of it, I would say that it would be great. And for those who are online right now and that are tired of cooking, we've done it a few times with different restaurants in Lake Oswego, and great food, great chance to get in your car and get out of the house and away from maybe your family for a few minutes, and then come back and you get a great meal. So go hello restaurants that are still open and trying to serve our community.
John, did you have to call the restaurant first to place your order?
One I did, one I didn't. You could do it either way, and you can sit in the parking lot and call with your cell phone, and they make it so easy, and they're very clinical. I will say I'm very impressed with the way that they're serving you food and making sure that it's all airtight and everything else. And it was great experiences.
Thank you. Councilor Mans.
Question around letters to the editor. As you all know, I sent a letter to the editor, and I'm hearing different subjects that I think would be appropriate perhaps for our counselors to write about. And I'm not saying go off message or off task, but I thought I'd direct this to Katie to see if she has any thoughts around this.
We can definitely discuss it in our communications group. I appreciated, as I said, yes, Councillor Manns, your thank you message is timely for today, because we were planning on getting a thank you message out to the community today as well. So we can definitely explore that if that's something that council is interested in. And would like to participate in that, for sure. We can discuss that, and that could go hand in hand with the topics that we're doing for each of the videos, or it could be something different. But we'd be more than happy to discuss that, for sure.
Thank you, and I promise I will run it by you first, okay?
No worries. I did want to add something in, Councillor Wendland, you mentioned about the businesses and the restaurants being open. That was something that was on our list of having like a running list of working with Liz from the chamber, sharing that. These are all the restaurants that are still open and they're serving and they're providing to our community. I did want to actually add in one little, that reminds me, I did chat with one of the businesses, the restaurants that's open the other day, and they said they were really busy. So that made me happy and positive that they were still, getting a lot of customers coming in, and even though they're closed, for obviously to the public, but they've still got a lot of people coming in with ordering takeout. So that was a great message.
Call.
So, I'm glad to hear all of this. What I find I'm being asked are often more technical questions, which you look at me and go, well, she should answer this technical dull question. If you there are some really practical problems, as we were talking before this. For example, people who are dying and need their wills. You go, oh my gosh, now what? There are no real ways to execute a will in the present circumstance. And so the long and the short of it is, what I'd like to see us do, to the extent that we can, is not just, for example, cite to a website to the extent that we can actually get more practical help or find people who can help. What am I talking about? Like, how do you apply for workers' comp? How do you actually apply for this unemployment and that sort of thing? When you're stressed, you look at that form and you go, I'd rather, poke my eye with a sharp stick than try to figure this out. So when we can volunteer a more to put on the website or however you want to do it, that does strike me as a good use of our talents, especially as we're, more at home, to really help in a very practical way, not just lift spirits. I get that, but it doesn't lift your spirit if you don't have any money and you don't know who to turn to, and you're starting to scream at people. That's really.
So actually, counselors, all of you, if you have had those kinds of requests, if you would write them down and email them to me, I'll send them to the Citizen Information Center, because rather than Katie's comms team, which is primarily pushing messaging out, that Citizen Information Center is really trying to help people navigate what they need to do during this crisis. So I don't know if we'll be able to help people get wills, but we might easily be able to help somebody walk through how to fill out unemployment forms.
Councilor Wendland?
Thank you.
Well, they can always will it to the city, right? No, I'm just kidding. Big picture, how is our senior community doing? I know that with the adult community center closed, do we have any pulse if our most fragile population, if if they're, I don't know if we do anything as a city, but I know Meals on Wheels is still going, but are we seeing any sort of a cry out from them at all? Some sort of indicators?
Ivan, can you take that question?
Yeah, I can. So Meals on Wheels is still operating. We also have sent out 2 weeks worth of stay on shelf meals to all Meals on Meals participants. And then our specialist, which is our specialist that connects people with services, is also still very active through the Meals on Wheels program. And our staff is still answering questions there and connecting people to resources through the ACC. So we're still staffed and operating. We have had quite a few phone calls, and we have made a number of referrals for services. So we also have, for those conjugate meals that normally people come to have meals at the ACC, we've created a protocol where we're delivering meals where people can drive through, call ahead of time, drive through, and we present them with a meal that they can take home as well. So we're continuing to do that, and we've developed a contingency plan should we not be able to do it at the ACC site, where we would move those services to the municipal golf course site. So
Other questions? City Manager Bennett, anything you want to add?
Was this helpful to all of you?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so we'll see you all on Monday at 4 o'clock. I actually think there will be one item on your agenda for action, and it will likely be that we are suggesting that you advance your award of grants for fiscal 2021 and let us pay those out now, because many of the nonprofits that you are going to get grants could use the cash now instead of after the 1st of July. The other thing I want to let you know is the week of April 6th, we're not going to do a Monday meeting. We'll just hold a briefing at the end of your regular council meeting. Your regular council meeting, however, will be just like this one. It will take place virtually. All right.
Thank you,
Thank you all.
everybody. Thanks for all this information. Have a good
Thank you,
day.
everyone.
Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.